welcome to season 3. Oh my God, I
Hey.
can't believe we're here.
I know that flew
Um,
by. Seasons 1, 2, and 3. Holy crap.
I know, and it hasn't even been a year we've been on.
Mhm.
And thank you to everyone listening because you have put us in the top 25% of podcasts. And
Yes.
thank you so much for tuning in and sharing. And this is something that, would be awesome to keep going. And so if you could, subscribe to us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, we're kind of everywhere. Um, but that just helps keep us going. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for your support. It truly is just like
Yeah.
humbling, right? It's just like,
Whenever we're having kind of like a rough week with it, it's so nice to get all your messages, and then
oh,
we just send it
yes.
to each other, and we're like, okay, this is awesome.
Yep, totally. Totally. And with season 3, we have another announcement which has many emotions to it.
Hmm.
This is going to be Lexi's last season at What the F.
Yes.
And obviously this is selfishly very sad for me. But at the same time, like, just I remember when you told me about this, I was like, I am selfishly sad but overwhelmingly happy because of what you're onto. And if you know just
Yeah.
tell us all, what are you doing?
I
Because
know.
I'm
It was
about
a
to burst because I'm so excited for
I
you.
can tell. I have tissues by me, but I should have sent you some. It
Yes.
was such a hard decision because this has been opened so many doors and has been such an amazing experience. I mean, all the people we've had on the show,
Yeah.
I have never had that kind of experience meeting and hearing all of those kinds of stories. And it really boosted my kind of like, I don't know, epilepsy. I don't want to say ego, but confidence
Totally.
going out
Yeah.
into the world. And I think that's partially like what gave me the confidence to do this because a lot of you probably don't know. At the same time we were starting up the podcast, I was just getting into life coaching.
Mm.
And we were kind of back then like, we'll see if this podcast works. I don't know. And then
Right.
it blew up. And then we were
Yes.
like, oh, whoa. And so then I just kind of, went with the podcast and loved every minute of it, like would not change it for the world. But then I reached a point where I was like, I just felt, it sounds so lame, but I felt the calling. I needed to still like,
That's not lame.
try life coaching and step away for the first time. I mean, I've been, enveloped in the epilepsy world for 12 years now.
Yes.
And I was like, I need to have a job where it's not all about epilepsy just to try it out.
I
And
think that's fair,
yeah,
Lexi. Like, you
yeah,
put in your time.
yeah. And I, still be super involved, especially here in Denver, and love my organization here.
Well, you're the
And
one who
throughout,
taught me how to, like, get involved in my
yeah,
community,
I
like, I learned
still
that from
freaking love it.
you.
I won't be able to go away from it because I love it. And especially now with our community, we have group chats with like all of our guests that we've had on the show, and
Yes.
they're part of my community now. But yeah, I'm starting a life coaching business, and I
Oh.
don't think I would have gotten into it if it hadn't been for epilepsy in the first place, because it's called Lexington Coaching, and it's all
That name is
about,
so dope because
I
if you
know, I
don't
love it.
know, Lexi's last name is Talkington, and so
Yeah,
it combines
it
your
kind of worked
names. I'm
out.
just so in love with it. Like, I
It's easy for
love
me to remember. I mean, being an epileptic, I have to have a company that I can remember.
Yeah.
So that helped out. I was like, just remember your first and last name. But
Okay, so I have a question.
mhm,
Because I like, just for our audience,
mhm.
because like there's life coaching and I've learned so much about this through you, but there's so many aspects to it and so many like, niches and like what does it look like for you?
Yes. So yeah, it's a big question, but life
Mm.
coaching is, a lot of people think it's, kind of like therapy, but it's very different. So therapy is when you want to, really dive deep into your past problems and work on, all your past traumas and everything. Huge fan of it. I have a therapist. Love it. Go every
Me
week.
too,
We both,
100%.
shout it from the rooftop that everyone should have one.
Yes.
And then coaching is when you're ready to move forward and really move towards a goal, or, anything that you're wanting in life. And a coach really works alongside you to like kind of keep you in check, make sure you are actually working towards that goal, and making sure that, that's actually what you want. A lot of people show up to coaching and they're like, I'm, really want to work towards this. And then you find out, you're actually really wanting to work towards something else. So,
That happened to me. So I don't know. I did career coaching when I was a teacher, and that is what pivoted me
yes,
from because I was like, what if I
they
worked
call it
in
pivot moments. Yes.
yeah, oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I had that like when it was, over a decade ago now, but I was and it was a career coach. So she was career
Mhm.
coaching me and I wanted to go to an administrative assistant so that I could like write on the side, and that was my whole goal. And then we found out I am not detail oriented.
Yeah.
I scored a 4 out of
Oh.
100 on detail orientation. And she was like, I don't think you should do that. And I was like, oh, okay. But yes, there's just so many. I love that. There's pivot moments and like so
Mhm.
helpful. So
Yeah.
helpful.
And it was actually like originally suggested to me by my therapist. And I was at first, I was like, what the heck? No, I'm good. And then I had met someone, another epileptic in my community here who's a coach. Shout out to Mark DeFee.
Hmm.
And he really, helped me figure out if it was a good path for me. And I was like, no, this sounds really awesome. And yeah, so it was awesome to also connect with another epileptic on it and be like, is this possible with our disease? Like, is this, okay? Or am I going to reach a point where I'm like, nope, seizures are popping up. And, he was like a really huge cheerleader. He was like, no, just go freaking do it.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. And my niche is, I kept playing with it and I kept going back to like self-care, which again is like, really driven through my epilepsy journey. And it's something that took me a long time to like really realize how important it was, or else bad things would happen to my body. And
And you are the
then
queen of self-care. I've
I
said
kind
that
of
so
am.
many times.
I
I've
really
learned
should.
so many tips and tricks from you. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Just from hearing what you do. You're like, yeah, after a doctor's appointment, I go treat myself to X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, ah, like
Yeah,
never thought of that before. Beautiful. Just
I
even the
love
small
it.
stuff.
Mm-hmm. It took me a while, and then it was really special after I learned how to do it within my epilepsy journey to figure out, oh, this is actually really amazing to apply to all other areas of my life. And
Yeah.
I just kind of watched my life transform. And so I love, love, love helping people and encouraging people with their self-care journeys. And whether it's, with a chronic illness, or, how to make and maintain friends as an adult. That's something people really struggle with, or,
Hmm.
whatever self-care means to you. I'm here for it and I love it. So yeah. So that's my next journey. I'm really excited. I will
I'm so pumped
not
for you.
I will not be leaving the epilepsy community because I love it so much and you guys are my family. Um, but yeah, so it's sad but exciting.
Totally.
But
Absolutely.
yeah.
100%. And we'll drop Lexi's URL
Yes.
in the podcast description, Lexington Coaching.
Yes, it's Lexington Coaching. I have a website.
Oh, it's
With
beautiful.
yeah, oh my gosh, I'm not a techie person. But yeah, if you think it's something that you're interested in, you can go to the website and sign up for a discovery call, and we'll have like a 30-minute conversation about, if it's a good choice for you. And again, coaching is different from therapy, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's been really exciting to, like Landis said, even help you with any of your health or self-care, you know, things that you've encountered, whether it's from, I don't even know, small things to large things.
Yeah, totally. Well, like
Yeah.
even just I think you just like live such an example of self-care. I think
Being in
I've
Colorado makes it a little easier too, because everyone out here does it. We're like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to go on a hike.
I'm going to go yeah. I'm going to go to the mountains.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the
Yeah,
gist out here.
yeah. Yeah, so but it's just I don't know, it's just been awesome to watch you go through this because it is your calling.
I
It's
feel it.
just yeah, I see it and it's just I'm so pumped for you and obviously so selfishly sad. But that
Yeah.
is
I know.
outweighed by my happiness for you
I know.
because
I was like, am I really walking away from this? And I was like, oh, I just kept coming back to it. And who was it? Was it Trayvon that coined the term healthy selfish.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
he was the
I
one.
felt like
Yeah.
this was my healthy selfish moment. And I
Oh,
was
I
like,
love it.
Lexi,
Yes.
you keep circling back to this. And,
Yes.
I heard him say that and I was like, ooh, uh-oh. And then I heard, my mom kept being like, Lex, I think you really have to, just try this because
Yeah.
you keep talking about it. And I'm like, oh, crap, I know. Everyone around me is telling me go for it. I'm like,
Right.
take some of your self-care advice and go do it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'll
Oh,
be doing. I'm really excited for it. Yeah. So stay tuned.
so absolutely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we will
Yeah.
100%. And so glad that you're staying with us through season 3.
And again, we really want to thank our sponsors, Neurelis and SK Life Science. They have been with us from day one and they continue to support us. We would not be here without them. And, like we've said in the past, they're not just sponsors, they are truly like families to us. We've really gotten to know them so well. And I mean, yeah, families, friends, we love them. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We really appreciate your support and for believing in us from day one.
Yeah.
Or else we would not
Yes.
have made it to season 3.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So that leads us to the first episode with Jennifer Reyes, who
Mhm.
my dad joke is no wonder her name is Reyes because she's a ray of light. But
Oh my
she
gosh, that's so true.
is.
It is true.
Right? Oh God. And just like this conversation, you guys I wish I had this conversation before starting in the workforce with epilepsy because, or I'd heard her talk about this because she has so many tips and tricks, so many stories that like are very relatable that I wish I had known how to handle these things,
Mhm.
and she just is like, she's like, yeah. And and I don't know, everything she comes up with silver lining for everything too.
Yeah.
And just beautiful. So you guys, I mean, if you're wondering how to handle like, cause it's so awkward at work, especially like,
Mhm.
I've had seizures like in an
Oh my
office. Ugh,
Yeah, if you
it's
had
just,
seizures, you got a new job and you're like, how do I
yeah,
address this with people?
right.
Or
Or even
you're
if you've
in a
been at
job.
the job.
Yeah, if you've been in the job forever and you're, newly diagnosed, you haven't told anyone. I mean, this covers all of that. And she's
Yes.
just like, so confident when she talks about it. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, it's a hard thing for people to bring up. A lot of
Totally.
people, and I've done it before too, where it's like, don't ask, don't tell,
Yep.
and don't even bring it up at work. And after talking to her, I'm like, damn it, I wish I brought it up every single time.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
Yep. I wish I'd handled my seizures at work differently. Like just so many things. And it's just like, so you're just going to love this. Before we dive into that though, we want to do our fave of the week and our fan of the week.
mhm.
Our fave of the week is the Hidden Truths Project. And that by the time this airs, hopefully I will have gone to their event in Chicago. Last year I had a seizure and I couldn't make it, but it's obviously, but it's a nonprofit that comes together. They put together these art shows by people who are neurodiverse, specifically focusing on people with epilepsy. So it's all people with epilepsy have made this artwork, and I've heard it's phenomenal. So September 9th, hopefully I will be like, yes, taking pictures from there because I'm supposed to be volunteering. So we'll see. But they also have events September 30th in Boston and November 11th in Newport Beach. We'll drop the URL in the podcast description if you want to go, if you're in those areas. So awesome. Just to elevate like the voices of people with epilepsy. And then our fan of the week.
Fan of the week is John Olson.
Oh, John. John has emailed us a few times. It's just like the sweetest words. And this time he said, keep up the great outreach. I look forward to your guest stories, which we all have. Thanks. And I just appreciate so much, or just like, just how he's just like, we all have these stories. And it's like, yes, we all do. And we're just trying to put them out there. So thank you, John. Like, like Lexi said earlier, like the simple reach outs are so helpful. And to our serotonin levels.
Yeah.
So here we go with Jennifer Reyes.
Yes.
Hey guys, welcome to What the F. We are here with Jennifer Reyes. And Jennifer is a very, very successful person, professional in what I refer to as the math world because it involves numbers and finance and things that I could never do in a million years. Currently, a project manager in finance management at a healthcare software company. Jennifer not only is a successful professional, but she's also an epilepsy advocate, something that I know I'm very appreciative of, and just the
Mhm.
work you've done. And a board member of the Epilepsy Foundation of Northern California, as well as her Instagram account, which is on J Ray Epilepsy Diaries. And
Yep.
we'll have that link for you in the description. But what it is it's like a resource for people with epilepsy and kind of sharing your journey and then sharing facts and all these things and blogs. And it's just a wonderful place to find more information, connect to more stories. So Jennifer, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Landis. Thank you, Lexi, for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you ladies today and to discuss just my overall experience living with epilepsy and to touch a little bit on my business professional life.
But before we dive into that, we would love to know, or if you could share with our listeners what your epilepsy journey like has looked like.
It's been quite a journey. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 18 years old, fresh out of
Mm.
high school. I had my first tonic-clonic seizure. I was at the pharmacy picking up some medication, and next, fell flat on my face and
Oh,
woke up with firemen and EMTs all around me asking all these questions.
oh, you
I
poor
was so
thing. That's
confused
awful.
and
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening. Next thing you know, I'm on the way to the ER. They're doing all these tests, and I am faced with the reality that I'm going to need to go through a series of tests to figure out why I have this, had this seizure, and ultimately learn that I have genetic epilepsy, prone specifically to tonic clonics, and that I would
Mhm.
need to be medicated regularly in order to manage these seizures. So if you could
Wow.
imagine, the my life and focus was college. I was super
Sure.
excited for that next phase of my
Yeah.
life. Then I
Mhm.
was slapped with this new reality that I had epilepsy.
Yep.
And at the time, a lot of the resources that exist today didn't w maybe I didn't know of them, but social media in order to connect with community, my connection with the epilepsy foundations, I didn't have that. So my knowledge of
Hmm.
epilepsy was super vanilla. I did not know a lot. And so that made the struggle that much more difficult. My family didn't know anything, and it was a
Yeah.
huge transition to understand my condition and what it is that I have. And
That
so
seems to sorry to I'm just but that seems to be some like a reoccurring theme, is that like I didn't know where to find resources.
Mhm.
There were, and there were less resources than there are now, which is always a good thing to hear because that means more are coming out. But my family didn't know. There's just like this it just seems to be this thing and then like all you had your focus on college and then it's like poop, rearrange your life,
Yeah.
figure out a different something else and it's just like a lot hitting you at once and it just seems to be this like a lot of we all have like I feel like that common thread in our story of like I was living my life and then everything just like got slapped in the face.
Mhm.
right, and I think as any, new freshman in college, they're looking forward to this new exciting chapter where you're meeting new people,
Yeah.
having new experiences. That wasn't the case for me. My life was slipped right from, under me. The rug was pulled right from under me, and it was just this new life and reality I was faced with that I had to do my best to navigate. And so the only resources I had was the generic, neurologist that they referred me to, that by default, I just had to accept what he said and the first
Sure.
medication and just think, okay, I guess this is going to work.
Yep.
And
Right.
as part of that, I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what to expect. And so I accepted the general prescription and just care that I was given. And then over time, I learned that it wasn't working for me and I needed to look outside what I was receiving to go to another doctor. And with that, I received a completely different type of care. And
Isn't that
my
crazy?
neurologist,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that
yes,
happens all the time too. People go to the second doctor or maybe it's the third doctor, and then they're like, "Wait, what? This is so okay." You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And again, it's just like we don't know. We just don't know. Should I be going to a different doctor? Should I? 'Cause there's just so much happening, like literally in our brains. And then, two, we're trying to take in all this knowledge while we're like adjusting to medication. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just accept this. And it's also such a rare condition that people don't talk about. And so it's difficult to have those conversations. And even if I had the vulnerability and strength to bring the conversation up with somebody, a lot of people don't have this knowledge. And so it was a
Yeah.
difficult conversation to even have on a day to day. I didn't have the knowledge or confidence to talk about it, let alone the people around me. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful that my neurologist that I ended up going to see ultimately, who has now been my neurologist for the past 20 years, she was able to provide a lot of
So we like her.
resources.
Yeah.
We, I love her. She is
That's
just
awesome.
like amazing and has really guided me through each phase of my life.
Hmm.
And there were a lot of challenges. It was a roller coaster. We didn't figure out immediately what medication was going to work best, but she
Yeah.
continued to work with me to figure out what would work best. And she
That's a
also
great
worked with me
doctor. One
Mm-hmm.
that takes the
absolutely,
time, figures it out what works best for you, because it's
exactly.
all different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what I appreciated also about her was that she wanted to understand what was important to me and my goals in life.
Oh,
And so she could help
yeah.
me get there, which was I wanted to go away to college. But in order to do that, I needed a license to be independent to drive in order to do that, right? So
Mm,
she guided me through what I needed to do, the lifestyle changes I needed to make to stabilize my epilepsy and help
that's
me focus
awesome.
on the long term goals I wanted to accomplish versus short term, the things that I may not be able to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate her from the perspective of providing the guidance from, of course, the medical perspective, but also the personal element that she added to really get to know me and help guide me. She's just an amazing neurologist, and I just look forward to actually going to see her. And
I
I'm
get that.
grateful.
Yeah, I get that
I'm
too.
grateful that it doesn't have to be so frequently, but when I
Yes.
do, she
Yeah.
just it's just an amazing relationship that I've built with her over the past 20 years, and she's really
Wow.
helped guide each phase of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
part of that is supporting my career goals and the things that I needed to do in order to work and have the appropriate accommodations to work with epilepsy.
Which I feel like is a
Mm-hmm.
great segue into, the career you've built, the career you have, the accommodations that you that are in your life that you feel like you need, that you may or may not have asked for. Sometimes I know like we can kind of create accommodations in a workplace without actually telling the boss, like especially when you work from home. You're like, and I'm taking a little nap, but you're never gonna know.
Mm-hmm.
Um but like, so what does that look like through your career? And I am particularly interested in this just because I remember when I was first diagnosed, and I was diagnosed as an adult, and I was like, how does anyone succeed,
Mm-hmm.
with epilepsy? And I just couldn't find anyone that had like a successful career. And so like um yeah, I'm just like I want to, and this is especially why like we want to put you, like highlight you, Jennifer, just because like you are a person out there that like I feel like if I had found you through some weird Google search when I was diagnosed, I would have felt hopeful. So we're hoping that that's what it creates, for other people listening who are like, yes, I need that beacon of.
Mm-hmm.
So what did it look like starting out in your career?
Thank you, Landis. I appreciate that so much. And I wish I could say that I was this confident person that I've become today that was able to just verbalize what I needed without feeling vulnerable. But that was the actual exact opposite of what I was.
Yeah.
I did everything to avoid the topic. I was fresh out of college in my first finance job. And so I was just focused on getting a career and having a completely different type of work life. I was a waitress all through college. And so this was my first professional career. And I
Mhm.
just wanted to show that I was like everybody else. I could work as hard as everybody else. I could do the long hours and not take the lunch break and not need any sort of accommodations.
Mhm.
But I learned in the long run, it ended up hurting me because
Mm.
instead of being open and explaining, I found myself almost, it was like this hidden type of feeling that I had that at times, whether it was a medication impact or something that, I was overly tired, I used other excuses for
Mhm.
it. I never was vulnerable and open. I used
Sure.
other conditions because I didn't want to expose what I had.
Yep.
But then I would have
Amen if
moments.
you've done that. I feel like we like Lexi
Oh
are like,
yeah.
"Yep, we know
Oh
that
yeah.
game
For
very
sure.
well."
And, I found myself disappointed at times, but I would rather
Yeah.
take that on versus expose what I had. Not sure why I felt so embarrassed about it, but then I'd have
Yeah.
moments where it was just in my face and there was nothing I could do but confront what was happening. And I recall one time I had a bad reaction to one of my medications. And I was dizzy and couldn't, had almost like vertigo, and I really
Yeah.
couldn't work. And at the time, it was a retail environment. So there's a lot of customer facing, very fast paced. And I was just hidden behind the back of the counter, just like crying. And my manager didn't understand why. And I had to then explain so many layers of I have epilepsy and I take this medication. And it was just like, but I didn't even have the energy to explain it all properly because I was dealing with the effects of the medicine. And it
Sure.
was
Mhm.
an awful experience because
Yeah.
it was overwhelming. And I felt
Right.
in that moment, had I been more open and honest with even just my manager, that experience wouldn't have been as stressful and just difficult in general. What I also
Sure.
learned in that experience was that I didn't need to necessarily tell everybody on my team that I had epilepsy. I didn't
Mhm.
need to expose the intimate details of it. As long as my manager knew, then she could support me in the way that I needed to. So that
Yep.
difficult moment really turned into a learning moment for me and an opportunity to open up about my epilepsy and the things that I needed in order to be supported in that environment. And I wish I could say, it took only one time for that to happen, but it was several times. It
Mhm.
was like, I need to
Yeah.
go lay in the back. I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And then finally, after, several times, it was like, okay, Jen, be honest with yourself. How many times can you use these different excuses of why you're not
Sure.
feeling well, why you need to
Right.
take a break, why you need to go away? And so I kind of was forced, I feel like, in some way to just be honest with myself, to be honest with my manager. And that in itself allowed me to take my communication and just overall the way that I presented myself with my epilepsy to another level with my manager. But with
Yeah.
that, I did learn that she didn't know anything about my condition and
Mhm.
what it is that I needed medically. And so I needed to then use my human resource department to be guided appropriately for what it was that I needed.
Wow.
Because she could
Yeah.
be as empathetic as possible and
Right.
feel for my condition. But at the end of the day, there's a job that needs to be done. That
Mhm.
Sure.
was her main priority, right? And then I found myself in this position of like, wow, I made myself vulnerable. I told you about this. And although you are somewhat empathetic, you're really not giving me the support that I need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Totally. Oh my
shouldn't this work
God.
the opposite?
Yeah, I can
Yep.
relate so hard to that.
Yep.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah,
And
because
that's
it's
when
just a lack of, and it's no one's fault. There's a billion chronic illnesses. You can't be expected to understand what's needed for all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're like,
Yeah.
right,
but yeah, we're gonna need, we're gonna need a little education here.
Mm-hmm.
right. And it was one thing for me to use my condition and my medication as a reason why I was unable to show up to work or perform certain tasks. But it was when she, on my behalf, in front of others, used it as a way to explain my condition and my behavior and my work style that just put me over the edge.
Yeah.
That was completely inappropriate,
And I think
uncalled for.
illegal.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Right?
Yeah.
the only person who can do that
Exactly.
is you.
Yeah.
That is not her place at all.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. But again, I feel like a story we're all familiar with. Like,
Yep.
And then even times when things, we had a guest on, Madeline. She was like, well, yeah, even when things are illegal, sometimes you feel kind of powerless and being like, well, I'm going to bring a lawsuit. And it's like, how?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, it's a tough situation to just, I don't
Well,
know, to
needless to
navigate.
say, I became very familiar with my human resources accommodations
Love
department.
it. Very
Oh,
smart. I
good.
love it.
And given the support of my neurologist, when there's medical documentation to support this need, you can't argue it. You can't argue it, right? It
Mhm.
just is very cut and dry. And then it becomes very much like, no, you're violating an accommodation that has been in place by human resources. You can't touch it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, I'm protected now. But then that brings its whole new other element of almost resentment, right? That was like the new level of
Yes.
like type of behavior.
Yes.
Like I became sort of untouchable. Like you can't mess with this. And I didn't take advantage of it by any means.
Right.
But it
Mhm.
was in place for a reason. No medical doctor or human resource department, I mean, that I could think of, would jointly just make an accommodation because somebody wants it,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
Mhm.
although, they provided it to me, I had managers that did not like it and were not nice about making sure that those accommodations were met. And that created a whole new set of challenges that I never thought that I would have to deal with.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was really, some of the most challenging times when I had management challenge my capabilities of what I could do as a manager. Because although I was performing my tasks, there were those challenging times. I performed well and was promoted into management very quickly. And I was very proud of that performance and that I was able to do that. But I had one manager that didn't like my accommodations and was challenging what I was capable to do as a manager and said that I
Wow.
was unable to perform management duties with accommodations. And that
Oh
was,
God. That's
and
the dagger right there.
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I took it on a whole nother level on that one and pretty much got, testimonies from different
Boom.
team
Love it.
members. And I
Yes.
just
Yeah.
said, has my performance been impacted, by my condition and my accommodation? And I just came at it
Mhm.
hard, like,
Good
go
for
ahead.
you. I
You're
love
going to say
that.
something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And see, I love
And
that because you like sometimes I feel like we're just like, it feels like our hands are tied behind our back because we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to combat this. I don't know how
Yeah.
to go at this. And you were like, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get other testimonials from other people who can, verify and
Mhm.
right,
dispute this claim. Like, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
right. And really, all she was disputing was that I wasn't going to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day without a break. It's like,
Oh my
first of
God.
all, nobody should be
Right.
doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And second of all, that's the argument, just because I can't work throughout these days without taking a break. I mean, legally, we all should be taking breaks. We
Yeah.
shouldn't be
Yeah.
working 6 days a
Uh,
week
yeah.
consecutively.
Someone needs to
But,
wake up. Yeah.
Right.
oh, yes, yes.
Man.
But
Hmm.
again, that presented a whole another level of challenges that I realized I had to deal with and,
Sure.
made my involvement with my human resource department a little bit more. I had to then share some more things in order to have a more accommodating schedule so that it was very cut and dry. And it was, at the previously there were gray areas where a manager who did want to challenge my performance and work capabilities was able to. It was only because I was able to advocate for myself and push for myself
Mm.
that essentially that pushback is what got me in that safe place. Because
Wow.
had I not, I
Yeah.
essentially would have been a victim to what she said and would have been demoted. And she had
Mhm.
a stronger case. She was really, I mean, it was a really challenging period
Wow.
for me in my
I
career.
bet.
And shortly after, I had a seizure while driving. The
Oh,
job I had was very, very stressful. I was commuting. I wasn't as disciplined with the times that I took my medication because of the fact that
sure.
I was working this like super stressful job. I'd have long days. My blood sugar would get super low because I wouldn't be eating lunch at appropriate times.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so just after one day that was just a really long day, I was driving and the flickering lights from the oncoming traffic was just enough to trigger a
Oh,
seizure.
oh,
And so at
so
the time
sorry.
I was
That's
with somebody in the car and they pulled the emergency brake. So
Wow.
we were able to avoid a car accident. But nonetheless, I still had a seizure while driving.
Mhm.
And at this point, it was 2013.
mm,
And it was like, okay, I need a complete break from work. I cannot do this anymore.
Mhm.
There's as much as I've tried, even with the support of my doctors and
Mhm.
also the human resources department, there was also this part of me that still wanted to continue to prove that I can do it. And I
sure.
stretched myself beyond this, beyond my bandwidth, and it
Yep.
resulted in, unfortunately, one of the most traumatic experiences that I've had in my life,
Yeah.
epilepsy
I.
or
Mhm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be one moment driving and the next thing you remember, you are now on the side of the road talking to firemen, trying to
Oh,
explain to them that you know who you are and your name. It was awful. It was an
yeah.
absolutely awful experience.
I'm so
And
sorry.
You're
That
just trying
just
to go to
sounds
work. I mean,
right.
that's it. I
Yeah.
mean, then you start to feel guilty about, all an assortment of things, and really you're just trying to like be responsible, do your
Yes.
job, and get the stuff done that you need to get done, and we're
And
still just
have
kind of, yeah.
that like extra pressure of the job, it sounds like, where it was
Yeah.
like, the 6 days a week, 12 hours a day sort of thing, and trying to be like, well, I can still do that, even with accommodations, I can still do that, and
Mhm.
there's just a lot. That's just a lot. That's very
Yeah.
heavy.
I've totally been there
and I
before when, yeah, I just kept going to work and I was like, nope, I'm fine. I'm going to keep doing that. And then just kept having seizures and just had to quit. And I was like,
yeah,
I just have to sit here and realize that this is not going away.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
something that I also learned is that unfortunately, some people will take advantage as much as allow
Mm-hmm.
them to.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
just I felt like they were already doing so much for me for accommodating with me with my schedule
There's
Right.
so much
that
guilt.
anything else out of
Yes.
that was like this
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
extra accommodation. And I hated
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so after that seizure I had while driving, it
Mm-hmm.
just really took things to the next level for me. And I needed to take a break. And I took about 6 weeks off of work and came back with a fully new accommodated schedule and a
That's
new
awesome.
location that I was sent to. And this new accommodation now included that I couldn't drive at nighttime. And so once the sun went down, I had to be gone, which
Mhm.
at the
That's
time,
awesome.
the bank, closed at 6, but the sun went down at 4. I had to leave at 3:30. When you're shrinking down at
Yeah.
3:30 leaving, everybody's giving you that look,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're
And no
just
one's
kind of
saying
like,
anything, and you're like, "I know, I hate myself."
it's just, yeah,
But I
and it's just,
love I do wanna point out that, 'cause I don't wanna brush over this, that you took time off for yourself. You took that, you
Yes.
said 6 weeks of
yes.
yeah, like, I think I'm with, like, the self-care queens right now between the 2 of you because you both are so good at this. But I love that you, like, are like, "Okay, I'm gonna take some time off and reevaluate this situation," and
Mhm.
that's really that's just deserves an applause. It deserves some, props because that's awesome. It's not
It
easy to
was such a
do.
Mm.
no, and it was such a traumatic event that it was more than just
Yeah,
the epilepsy I had to
I
recover
bet.
from. And,
Mhm.
I really have not driven at nighttime since then. I've now gone to several locations with the same company, and each time I have my own next, round of challenges that I need to deal with. And from there, I actually was able to go to a different department within the same company. And that was a completely different experience because even, not having to work weekends, I then guaranteed
Wow.
had 2 days off. And that
Yes.
was just
Hey, like
invaluable.
the rest of
Yes.
the world.
Right. And then, I don't have to
Ah.
fight to have a Saturday off.
What changed then over time? Because it seems like in, conversations you and I have had before too, like that, you are more, I don't know, not equipped, but you've got like a handle on,
She's seasoned.
yeah, yeah, good
I
call. Oh, little
like that
pun
one.
there too. Seasoned. But in the good way, not the bad
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
Yes.
I always appreciate a good pun. It's funny. It took a very awful experience at work to force me to face this reality at a different level. And in this new department I was at, although it was great that I was able to work 5 days a week, it presented its own challenges with that schedule. And
Yeah.
again, I wanted to keep up with the hustle and bustle, and it was the next level up from my previous department. And so there was that I was just wanting to prove that I can do the same amount of work as everybody and work the long hours again. And I was meeting with my boss, and in the middle of our meeting, I had a seizure and
Oh,
I
you
got up
poor
from the
thing.
table. And, he thought I was like leaving our meeting and following a fly
Oh
because my eyes
gosh.
just started to
Oh,
kind of, go all over the place,
yeah.
and fell flat on my face and had a, tonic-clonic
Oh, Jen,
seizure right in front of him.
you poor
And
thing.
it was awful. It was
Yeah.
absolutely awful and so embarrassing because I had never had a seizure at work.
Mm,
All of these
yeah.
experiences that I had, these seizures were at home or maybe it was in public, but it was never at the workplace. And
Mhm.
that for me was just like the tipping scale. I just was like, all right, shit. This
Yeah.
is, out here whether or not I like it. And what
Yeah.
am I going to do with this now?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I was so fortunate to have some amazing colleagues that just, took care of me immediately and
Good.
took me home and took care of me until my partner came home. And so, it was so nice to have people there that were
Yeah.
just responsive in a kind way. I realized, like, whoa, my historical experiences with people shouldn't impact how I now deal with people on my day to day now. Like, I'm being shown kindness and empathy and support and understanding in a way that I never have before. And
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
completely changed my perspective of how I was going to be with my epilepsy. And
Wow,
so,
that's huge. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot, and I noticed you said too, like, and this is something I hear and feel too, is, when you have a seizure in public, there's embarrassment. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought about that, like, why? Why?
Right.
It's you can't help it, but why? But it's like, it's such a vulnerable.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like you don't, go into work with the flu or food poisoning, right? You're not
Right.
throwing up in front of your colleagues, right? So like that would be embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
So but it's just like, oh, but it's like one of those things that I don't know. I've tried to like change, after having a seizure, but there's not much you can change in that moment after having a
No.
seizure about your
Well, and it's like,
emotions.
it's scary because, like, I mean, for a lot of us, you just do not remember what you said, what you did, how you presented
Yeah.
yourself. You're just kind of, your body's out there doing whatever it's doing. And
Yep.
then you come to later and you're kind of like, oh crap, what did I
Yep.
do? Who did I see? Who did I encounter? And when you have a seizure in the safety of your own home, you don't have to worry about that usually. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, there's another
It's a
one.
luxurious seizure in your home.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in your own bed, in your own room, in a safe place, you're just kind of like, yep, okay, I'll get out my seizure log. But when
Yes.
it's out in public, you're just kind of like, oh, shit, I don't know what I looked like. And
Yep.
it's like,
yeah.
it's
And
like
that-
running around naked. You have no clue.
And
Oh, that's so
absolutely.
fucking true, Lexi.
Yeah,
God damn
you
it.
do
You
not
hit it
know
on
if
the
you
head.
took your clothes off and put them back on after the seizure.
Yeah.
I mean, no clue. But you just
Oh,
kind of sit
yeah.
there and you're like, did anyone notice? I hope not.
Yeah.
Oh, and part of that too that was challenging was because my boss, he's like, I tried to catch you, but I couldn't get to you in time. And then you got up and you started walking out of the office, and I was trying, that post-ictal state, you know what the hell you're doing.
No.
And so,
You're
he's
like
like,
10
I
drinks
went to,
in.
Yeah.
right? And so he said he went to try to get help and told me to sit down. But the next thing you know, I got up and I was wandering around the office, and he was
Yeah.
trying, I mean, he really did his best with the knowledge
Oh,
that he had to
sure.
help me. And the fear in his face and, the way that he responded, it just, part of it kind of broke my heart. I felt like, oh my gosh, had I done better at explaining certain things or telling him, like, maybe he
Yeah.
wouldn't have been put in this position. And maybe a part of me had some kind of PTSD with previous managers, right? And just expected
Totally.
the same response as I had historically. And that was a learning moment for me as well. Like,
Yeah.
I had actually a group of very, very supportive people. And when I realized that, it was like this light bulb that went on in my head. And I was like, I actually don't have anything to be ashamed of. Like,
Yeah.
wow, this is a nice feeling to know that I'm supported and I'm being told to come back to work when I'm ready. And I found myself coming back to work actually probably a little bit sooner than I would have. And it was about maybe 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks after. But I was injured. I had a dislocated shoulder. I had,
Oh my God.
black eyes,
Yeah.
all of these things. And I showed up to work with the black eye still. I was like, I'm
Go,
here. I
girl.
can do it.
You're-
Love it.
You are a badass. God
know,
damn. That's
like-
amazing.
And it's so interesting. It was like empowering to just kind of walk around with it. Like,
Oh,
ask
I
me
bet.
what happened. I'll tell you. It was getting to that point that I realized I needed support beyond my family and my friends, and seeing that I could have maybe educated my colleagues better made me realize that I needed to educate myself better. And so I
Sure.
was just online, like, what resources are there?
Mhm.
And I came across the End Epilepsy organization and was just super motivated to go to their walk for epilepsy that they had in Pasadena. The one in San Francisco had already passed for that year, but I just had this like
Sure.
immediate need to connect with the epilepsy community. It was like,
Mhm.
now
Yeah.
I need support beyond what I've been receiving. It was just this weird feeling that I had in me, that I just was like, I need more. I was craving more knowledge, more support, a community of people that understood what I was
Totally.
going through.
Makes such a
Yeah.
And
difference.
so-
It really does.
It does.
Absolutely. And, with the support of my colleagues, actually, they helped encourage me to share that I was participating in this walk and to create a team of people to walk with me and raise money versus just myself as an individual. And
Wow.
so
That's
with
very
that,
cool.
I made the decision to post a picture of me with a black eye and my story. And I reached my
Go
goal,
girl.
which, was like $1,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I unexpectedly, within 24 hours, reached my goal and was like, whoa, like
That's
this wasn't about the
amazing.
money, but this was a crazy response from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, next thing you know, the End Epilepsy organization is like, hey, Captain, like, we noticed you had an amazing response. Can we get a quote from you?
Oh my
And
gosh.
I met some amazing people, and it
Mm,
just really evolved after that into just such a beautiful community of people that I met that just continued to flourish.
oh,
And the
Mhm.
walk was so empowering
I
and
love the
just
5Ks.
filling. It was just like the sea of purple and people, and to just see everything when you're looking at yourself and your condition, you're like, wow, like I know that I live with this, but I still have a job. I was able to get my license back. I've got a full life, and I don't have seizures regularly. And that also was a moment for me that made me realize I could actually do more than just participate in the community. I can maybe
Mhm.
be an advocate. I can try to spread awareness.
yeah.
And that is what basically started my Instagram page to peer share my journey. So
That's so
that first
awesome.
walk was like my first post on my Instagram that started, this whole peer sharing journey that, has now evolved into something so great that I never would have imagined would have. I've really
Mhm.
started it for myself and to just connect with others. And there was nowhere near the amount of people online doing epilepsy awareness and blogging and memes and all of that 6 years ago. I
Yeah.
felt like I was just like a very small population of,
Oh
people who are
yeah.
talking about epilepsy online, unless you
Mhm.
were, maybe the Epilepsy Foundation NorCal or, all these other organizations. And so it was a new territory for me. And I was just trying to find ways to connect with people, whether it was humor or, just facts. And then I realized that people were actually resonating with the stories I shared about my personal experiences.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I started to share more about that. And I noticed it was getting a better response and reaction than a meme. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. I don't know.
Yes,
I came here to,
definitely.
create,
Mhm.
some type of connection with other people. But wow, like people find me inspiring. Like, what's going on here? And so
Yes.
I just
Yes,
thought,
we do.
wow,
Mhm.
I have all these experiences I've gone through. Like, I'm just going to continue to share them. And so that was the whole idea about J. Ray Epilepsy Diaries, right? They were Jennifer Reyes's diaries of her epilepsy experiences.
Yeah.
And with that, just, evolved into this more peer sharing way that I was able to use my experiences to help people hopefully avoid a situation, that maybe I went through, or to, maybe guide them in a ways like, hey, this is what I experienced
Yep.
when I had, this situation happen, whether it was the driving with the seizure or, one time I had a seizure at school in college and somebody put a DVD in my mouth because they wanted to make sure I did not swallow my tongue.
Oh
And so
my
that was a very
god.
A
popular post because,
DVD?
That's a new one.
Well, I've never fucking heard
yeah,
that. Jeez
God.
Louise.
okay,
Oh,
I will say this person was also the one who sat with me, took me to the emergency room, and he was like, I was so scared.
good
All I know is that
intentions.
you're
Yeah.
such
Yeah,
great
yeah, that's right. Good
intentions.
intentions.
He's like,
Yeah.
I just know that you have to put something in your mouth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. But
Yeah.
I shared that as a post and it had an amazing response because I
I
was like, do not put anything in
gosh.
anyone's mouth if they're having a
Right.
seizure. And you know what was interesting was that one of my best friends commented and said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this." And that was like a moment for me where
Wow.
I realized,
Yeah.
like, I've actually done poorly at educating my friends.
Yes.
How is it
Me
that one
too.
of my
Yeah.
best friends doesn't know this? So that
Yeah.
was like another, like, wow, okay, you need to be better about educating your immediate circle,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And educating those because truthfully, it's a little bit easier online because you're behind a
Yeah.
post, you're not live, you don't have that emotional vulnerability. I'm able to edit the content that I want.
Having not had a seizure for a while, I've actually recently had a friend come up to me and say, "What do I do when you have a seizure?" And I'm like, "You know what? I haven't told people I met in the last 2 years what to do." That's a good point. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, noted.
Yeah.
But I had the same realization. I was like, "Okay, closest inner circle doesn't even know, what to
Mhm.
Right.
do. They know all
Yeah.
about what my life looks like, but
Yeah.
yeah."
And then sometimes you tell them and they don't do it, which I get because it's like a, you're scared. They're scared, when you're having a seizure or something. And so it's like, I'm like, do I make like little cards? Do I, like,
Yeah.
what, like, here's how you should respond to my seizures, so they can be like, oh, where's the card? Pull it out or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
Because like, I get that, someone tells you something once maybe, and you think you retain it, but in a moment of panic, you might not. And that's no one's being bad or
Mhm.
no one's fault. It's just life.
People really need to understand this condition because even the ones in my closest circle don't. So,
Yeah.
what can I do to touch a larger audience?
Mhm.
And that's what really just continued to motivate me to continue to spread that awareness and to just try to educate, people on epilepsy. It's just so amazing how common it is, yet how we're so uneducated about it.
Mhm.
Totally. And Jennifer, we just want to thank you, not only for being here today, but also just for the work you're still doing, and for
Mhm.
J. Ray Epilepsy Diaries, and for putting yourself out there in the name of education, in the name of community. And thank you so much for
Yes,
being
thank you.
here today. This has just been like, it's so weird when you have like a fun conversation about really heavy stuff, but that's just who
Mhm.
you are. You are just like a bright light and really have made really tough conversations very fun. So thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Oh, thank you so much. And if I could leave anybody with any type of advice, I would just say don't be afraid to be human. We're all human.
Love
And
it. Love
that's what we
it.
have to remember that at the
Yes.
end of the day, that's all that matters. Your
Hmm.
health is all that matters, and no job is worth compromising that health because at the end of the day, the
Yes.
job will get done. But your
Oh,
health is the most important thing.
Yes.
So just, kind of
beautiful.
wanted to wrap that up and just let people know continue to advocate for yourself, educate yourself on your labor laws with your company, and
Yes.
just remember that at the end of the day, we're all people. Just take care of yourself.
We're all human. I love it.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Jennifer.